Okay, so in this stage, we now have the logo type that we're quite happy with. Of course, if you're following along, please use a different brand name so that you can use this in your portfolio. It can be made up, it doesn't have to be for a real client, but at least use something different just so you can show this off in your portfolio. So I would suggest, just for the first time you're following this technique, to do what I do, which is pull out the first letter of your brand name and use that as the core of what's going to become a decorative brand mark. So we've just used the letter M here. It's roughly, I'd say, 200% the size of the main logo type, but you know, you can adjust that and you can tweak it to see what you feel is best. So that's really simple. What we'll do, if you remember what we were aiming for from our sketch, and this is where, rather than becoming overwhelmed, thinking I've got so many different pieces to pull together, we just slowly take it one stage at a time and you'll find it comes together nicely. So let's do this secondary tagline that we have forming a circle around the M. So I will share a technique to put this together because it's quite useful. So you want to open up the ellipse tool, and the shortcut for that is L, and drag holding Shift and Option. So you can drag a nice ellipse. It doesn't need to have a stroke, so I'm going to remove that. In fact, it doesn't matter what it has because we are next going to open up the type on a path tool. With the type on a path tool selected, simply click anywhere on the path or anchor of the ellipse, and it will allow you to type on a path, which is the effect we're trying to achieve. Now this can be a little bit of a fiddly and frustrating tool, so just a few tips on how it's used. If I zoom in for you here, so first of all, your circle is now gone. The type on the path tool converts the circle to this specific text object. And if you click it with the selection tool, you can see these thin little selection lines here. Now these form the start and the finish point of the text. So because it goes round in a complete circle, if you drag the finish point, you see the little plus appear to indicate there's remaining text to come. And if you drag the start point, that forms the start of the text. Now this is important because we may need to rotate things or position things more precisely in future. But we're going to simply add the text we'd come up with in the sketch. So to remind myself, we had the brand name, interior design, and Paris and London. So let's add that here. We won't worry about the font just yet. So double click and then Control A to select all. And I'm going to do this in caps. So we have a brand name, model, and I think a little hyphen is quite a nice way to space out the text here. Then we said we'd put interior design. Remember, for your brand, this can be something different. So your brand name can be different, but you could perhaps be creating this for a brand that's a completely different profession. It could be a hair salon, it could be anything you like. And then we said we would put London, and I like that little, I'm not sure what it's called, but the symbol, it's like a straight vertical divider. I think that looks quite nice. And then by playing with the tracking, and it's given me quite a generously spaced default, but I'm going to go even further. So I'm setting the tracking all the way up to 700, and then the size. And now, of course, so that's looking good. Now we need to choose a font. So again, a tip for luxury brands, consistency is still key. you don't really want to use more than 2 different fonts, I think, especially for the logo, where it can begin to look a little incoherent, especially since we have a nice modern sans serif here, and we've got a nice serif here. I think let's pull in one of these or the other. So I believe down here we've used Gotham. You could use a different weight by all means, but at least use the same family. And yes, here by default, I think it's given us the last font we were using. So Gotham also in book weight. So that matches nicely. And it's just to point out the fact you don't want to, use a different font for every element, or things can look messy. So ideally, the plan is, and look at that, it's almost perfectly sized already. But we're going to have this sit, and I'll just enlarge it. And for some reason, when I've enlarged it, it's now cut off some of the type. So I'm going to go back, and I'll bet under my preferences, my scaling is probably not scaling font sizes as I want it to. So I'll investigate that later, but for now, let's just shrink this down and shrink this down. And then I have roughly the scale I'm looking for. And we'll look at the overall composition in a future video. But for us, for our purposes, really the M with this nice secondary tagline around the outside, that's going to form the core of a brand mark. So that completes the task for this video. Hopefully yours will be something different. Again, perhaps once you've run through the tutorial once, you could actually swap this out and you could create a symbol to replace the M here. So have fun and see what works for you. But that completes the center of our brand mark, and in the next video we're going to look at adding the decorative element.